We have current That's a little late.
And yeah. Good evening. It's 5:04 and I'm going to call this Committee of the Whole special budget meeting to order. Welcome back, everybody. So attendance, we have 3 counselors who are going to be a little late this evening. Counselor Scott McLean, Counselor Bob Morton, and Counselor Larry Pinch. So for now, we have quorum clerk snare. So if you could just mark that, and they will be along shortly. Moving along, I'm going to look for approval of the agenda, including additions or deletions. And Council, I just want to entertain if we could add an in-camera item if time permits. It is contractual and it would tie in with the budget. Collective bargaining, I guess I'm allowed to say. So if you guys would like to do that tonight, if not, no worries, we can add it on to council on Tuesday, but it does tie into budget discussion. So I'm at your will. I'm seeing shakes of heads that it's okay. And if we're out of here at a decent time, we'll add it on, but we'll put it on the agenda for now. Thank you for that. So Clerk Snare, the agenda is approved with that. Any declaration of conflict of interest? Seeing none. We'll move into announcements. I have a couple. West Hants Regional Municipality is in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. This land is governed by the treaties of peace and friendship signed in 1726. West Hants Regional Municipality recognizes we are all treaty people and have responsibilities to this land and each other. West Hants Regional Municipality also recognizes African Nova Scotians are a distinct people whose history, legacies, and contributions have enriched that part of Mi'kma'ki known as Nova Scotia for over 400 years. And just a reminder, as chair, we're committed to ensuring this meeting and its participants conduct themselves in a respectful and professional manner as outlined in the municipality's municipal code of conduct. Meeting presenters, staff, and the public are expected to conduct themselves in an equally respectful manner at all times the meeting is being conducted. I thank you all in advance for your commitment to these important meeting principles. Does anyone have any other announcements that they would like to share with us this evening? Seeing no lights, we'll move on. So we're at 6. Review follow-up items from our May 14th meeting. So I'll turn it over to Director Rashawn.
Thank you, Worship. Just 1 second as I get my share screen started. All right. So again, we're in our 2025-26 operating budget discussions, following up from May 14th. Budget adjustments following council's direction. So again, I just included our slide here of what was reduced prior to the release. Council's direction on the 14th was the removal of the 3 new positions, which would include the building official, the procurement and funding specialist, as well as the communication specialist. A reduction in the unhoused initiatives by to $10,000 from the $60,450. Moving the business development societies of $105,000 to the general commercial tax rate. A reduction in legal of $10,000. And I'll explain why that's underlined here in a second. And then a deferral of a number of capital projects. So we included a deferral of the Hansport Fire Department's upgrade to engine 12 compartments, the Hansport Fire Department hydraulic jaws of life, the Windsor Fire Department truck bay floor coating, the Brooklyn Fire Department Station 1 Civic Center floor, and the Brooklyn Fire Department Station 2 epoxy coating for the apparatus floor, and then as well as the Garrish Street electrical project. There was also a reduction in the debt servicing for the outside operational facility to half. as well as the request for the deferral of an RCMP vehicle. Addition, there was a reduction of the maximum increase of 3% for each fire department. And there was a reduction of general grants and contributions back to 100,000 from 129,000. With those adjustments, you'll see, and I have my laser pointer on, that reduced our debt servicing by 228,000. Our net expenses were reduced by 322,000, which includes the 29,000 rate in the recreation and cultural for the grants, 5,000 in environmental development services for legal, and then under protective services and general government, the positions as well as the legal. And then we also increased the sale of services by 5,000, which was the Survive to Swim, I think is what the program's called. We were Swim to Survive program. So we were assured that we would be getting that funding. So we added that back in. And with the change in the commercial rate that we're going to be discussing here in a little bit, it resulted in an increase in our grants in lieu of taxes because a lot of those are commercially assessed properties as well. So again, just a reminder, a penny in each of the different areas and what it's worth and how it changed from the previous year. So with these updates and with prior direction from council, we have delayed the small scale solar project. We have delayed the EV chargers for 76 Morrison Drive, council chambers upgrades, and the various projects that had debt servicing attached for an overall net change to the capital budget of 444,000 reduction. Again, that's not going to change the 5-year capital because all the direction within the from council was to delay. So it just will push them out. So the 5-year capital number will not change based on these, but the current year number will change. Then the reserve budget updates. So of course, as we delay projects, we also don't withdraw from reserves. And as we change things, we also increase our adjustments and additions. So we've increased our Windsor infrastructure addition by 6,550. We've increased our Hansport infrastructure addition by 21,400. We have a reduction to the expenditure for CCBF of 25,000. That's associated to the small scale solar project. And we have an operating reserve expenditure decrease of 70,000, which is the 10,000 for the EV chargers and the 60,000 for the council chambers upgrades. So overall, with the increases in contributions and the decreases in expenses going out, we see a net change of 122,000 to our projected year-end balance. So with those changes, the proposed general tax rate goes to 82.21 cents. This is a change from the previous presentation of the 85.26 cents. And you can see the overall change in West Hants now has gone down to 5 cents, with the other communities being maintained. Looking at the commercial rate, so the commercial rate would go up from 98 cents to $1.0468. With this change, it's an adjustment of 0.686 cents for each of the rates. And this is again associated to the downtown business development societies. So looking at this chart, and I'll increase it here. Looking at this chart, the prior to consolidation tax rate was $1.0323. The current proposed rate is $1.0468. $1.223. So we are exactly 1 cent below the pre-consolidation rate. And looking at the increases to the average property based on the overall projection and cap adjustment of 1.5 from PVSC, we have, and the reduction in the tax rate based on the original motions, we see that the low range for West Hants went from 59 to 37, and on the high range, it went from 588 to 372 based on what was last presented to council. Are there any questions before I get into the next stage of direction?
Counselors, any questions? Counselor Ivy?
Thank you, Chair. Through you to Director Rashan, and I see the next piece, I guess that's the direction on the operational budget separate, where we talked about the high, what I call the high level, the financial categorization and or the departmental, as was referenced by Councillor Yanish. Is that correct? That's where that's coming in for comment. So that's fine. The one question I did have, though, is that underneath direction earlier, you made a reduction to as it related to the fire departments, and we've had discussion on this, but it says here to a maximum 3% change for each department. So that's not clear to me, because the direction put forward was to be a 0.9% cap on the increase for those budgets. And so I'm curious, is a 3% change you're talking about a reduction of 3%, or is it meant to be a maximum 3, which I'm just looking to get clarity on what it was we talked about and what's here.
So based on my recollection of our conversation on the 14th, we did toy around with the idea of 0.9 and 3% as the maximum threshold for change. So what that means is any department from the previous year of 24-25 would only be able to change up to 0.9 or 3%. And I believe the consensus that night was to move with the 3%.
So I can't speak to it because I wasn't supportive of that. And so I'd ask other folks what their recollection is. And I'm not wanting to, because again, I don't like the suggestion of it being that either, but am I incorrect? I'm open to being wrong on that. I thought it was 0.9 is what was 3. Okay. My apologies. Thank you.
Mayor Zabian?
I was under the impression it's 0.9 as well. I thought I had asked the question of CPI. I think came up, CPI.
Yeah.
We were told end of December it was 0.9 rather than the 3. But I'd have to go back and look at the thing. But what's the change in what's the difference in numbers? I don't recall the 2. I don't recall discussing the 2 at all. But
Yeah, so when I
$56,000 overall change,
56,000 was the number
increase
based on
amongst
0.9,
them all.
including the including the general or the regionalized component. Was that number? I didn't break it out, so sorry. That's all I'll say.
No, so through your worship, that night we did a rough calculation of what 3% would mean on the net change in fire, and it was 21,000 is what we presented. And that was based on the 3%. Again, it's up to council's direction further. Nothing's approved yet. So if you do want to reduce it further to 0.9, I can then take that direction as part of our break tonight.
Counselor Remy?
Through you, Chair. I think I was the one that brought it up that said the 0.9 and suggested 3 because that's what we were increasing, like staff salaries and whatever. We had a discussion on CPI and whether it was 0.9 or then we moved into the 0.3 and those types of things. So I don't remember where we left off on it, but that is where the 3% came from.
Anyone else further? Just looking for direction. Do you want to leave it, or do you want to see what it looks like at the 0.9? Carly has the capability to do that at our break. Mayor Zabian?
Major. So the overall increase you said was 26,000.
21.
21,000.
Just a little over 21. I can get the exact number for you here in a second.
So for the sake of time, Chair, there's no real impact on the overall what council's trying to achieve.
Okay.
My opinion, but it's what you have other lights on, but
Counselor Ivy?
Yeah, just the one other, sorry. I don't want to pull the owl off the table. The one last question I had here is the point on reducing the debt servicing for outside operations facility by half. And it's not clear to me what we mean by that, actually. So outside operations facility.
Yep, so that's what it's called in the budget document. And it's for the Public Works Depot and Recreation Depot. And we discussed halving the debt servicing for the first year, just due to capacity and the completion timeline being unknown.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anything further? Any questions on this part? Seeing none? Carry on, Dr. Rashawn.
Thank you, Worship. So further to the direction that was given, I'm just going to catch up in my slides. It was also requested that all departments go back and review their budgets and try to reduce by half of the proposed percentage increase. So I have included an attachment here, so I'm going to stop sharing for council to review. I have not made these changes because, again, some of these may require further discussion from council, and I didn't want to make the changes without clear direction from council on what they wish to change. But here are a number of items that we have highlighted as part of the staff review for each department, with some comments, because one of the directions was to ensure that we brought back anything and highlighted if it would have impacts on potential service delivery. So I've also color coded it for council. So the other thing you'll see is anything in blue is an accuracy adjustment. So those ones are pretty safe to make because it's, again, just based on either history or updated knowledge that we have received since budget was being prepared. Anything in pink is an area where we've identified if council wishes to do the full half of the percentage increase, we may have to see reductions in these areas, and those would have broader impacts on service delivery. So we highlighted them in pink because we can reduce them. But we, of course, would want direction from you to ensure that we meet that half percentage of what was asked. And then I have one highlighted in green because this is a proposal that was not part of the original direction, that if council wishes, because the courthouse is this will impact only the 1 year, hopefully, pending council's direction. We could look at supplementing the shortfall with operating reserves for this 1 year. And so I have put that in there. It's about 47,000, if that's the number. We have reduced the draw on operating reserves through the capital project delays. So that is up to council as well for direction.
Any questions, or did you want counselors to have a little bit of time to go through these?
Yeah.
Just to be clear, Carly, the ones that have no colors, just
The ones that have no colors are areas where we have identified reduction. However, there's comments in the details
Yeah.
line that would be applicable to council making that decision.
okay. So we'll give counselors a few minutes since they're just seeing this for the first time. And Mayor Zabian.
Through you, Chair, to Director Roshan. So with all the changes we've done in the last meeting's direction for tonight, plus what you just proposed, or staff have gone back and proposed further, whether it's service related or not, we still have a reliance on reserves
Yes.
to supplement where we are at the proposed rate tonight of 102.5.
Yes.
So we still have that reliance on that reserve. So come a year from today, council, when we're looking at next year's budget, that's still going to be an issue because everything that has been deferred is going to come back next year as well. So I just want to highlight that. Not a question for you, Director, just as a highlight to the group that you're going to find yourself in a year's time with very similar issues with looking at the same items you're cutting right now, and then
And
whatever next year brings on top, the 26, 27 capital expenses, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So just wanted to highlight that.
thank you, Your Worship. That's a great point. And as part of this exercise of what we did, I also did have to increase a little bit on the draw from the reserve to ensure that the percent increase was an even amount versus an uneven amount. So we didn't want to increase 5.66. So I took a little extra from the operating reserve in that sense to make it an even 5. So I'm just going to get that number for you.
Any other? Counselor Paul Morton.
Gotta wait for the number for reserves, or how much we're using for reserves this year.
Okay.
I believe it's 1 million. I know it's 1 million. Just give me 1 second here. 1,195,000.
That's roughly 6 cents. So we're really chasing our tail. Basically, 'Cause next year it'd be that much again, plus whatever. So you defer everything, nothing's gonna change. You gotta cancel some stuff.
Counselor Ivy.
Yeah, I agree with the comments made that, we've worked our way through this to this point, and we went and we looked at capital projects, somewhat high level, somewhat trying to pinch on those, and we've gone in at high level on the operations side with what we come back with here, but we really need to look at changing some things, and because what's just been said that next year we're going to have the same problem, but it's probably the same problem and more, because deferral doesn't make it go away. Deferral just gets added on to next year's, which means things start to ramp up. If we look at that debt to revenue curve that we have and that we look at every year, it's going to start to ramp up more because the percentage of debt being used or consuming revenue to pay the debt isn't going to get any better. And so I don't want to go on about this because I think we're under this specific piece of it, but it does come to a conversation that I think we need to have as to whether we say, yeah, we can kind of just get our way through this budget, and then a year from now, sit down, roll up our sleeves and provide different specific direction, to try and fix the problem, or, and I don't think that's the answer. I think we've probably all learned that in life over time, that putting off a tough thing doesn't get better down the road. So I agree with the comments just made. My point for speaking was just to ask, did you say the courthouse was on the list or it's not? The courthouse, the 47,000 by.
So through Your Worship, you'll see that it's at the very bottom of page 1. It's highlighted in green. It's 0 at this point. I have not included it because all of the stuff that's on this page is for council's direction. And that's just so that we didn't cut something and then it need to get batted back in, because it makes it a little easier for me on the break side of it to make changes.
Thank you. I heard green, but I see gray. So
That's okay. Thank
Thank-
you.
Yes. Any other questions from council? Seeing none, Director Remy,
Thank you. Through you, Chair.
Counselor, yeah, sorry.
It's okay. We knew what you meant. I do have a question. Just quickly going through this list. I do see a lot of and actually this may be for Director Keogh, or one of the two of you. When I'm going down through, it's some of the hourly staff, and it's program staff and those types of things. Obviously, that's going to have an impact on the programs in what we're offering, which kind of goes against, I just want to point out that goes against what council was saying. So I personally am not okay with that, because we're looking at increasing programs to, even more rural areas and those types of things. Those were discussions that we have been having. So I mean, I get we're trying to cut back on the budget, and I understand all of those things, but I don't think that a reduction in staffing in our recreation programs is necessarily the way to do it. Would be my.
And these are just showing us, these aren't in the budget now. This is just waiting for our direction. So is there any other questions, counselors, on this part? Mayor Zabian?
Just through you, Chair, I'd have to strongly agree with the comments of my colleague, Councillor Remy. I've seen firsthand what programming has done for our community and individuals and families who have accessed in this last 3 years anyways, anything that we've put on, and I'll use the word, it's changed some families' life, eh? And that's comments that I've received. And I know there's more out there that I haven't heard yet, but I would be very against anything programming wise for the overall impact of, if you're to take the whole list, it's still not getting council to where we were discussing. So I think a larger discussion really needs to happen. Maybe not this budget cycle, but after this one, a much larger discussion is going to have to happen with council leading up into the next budget cycle. And just a comment on the business increase. Having spoken to numerous businesses, that one's going to be a tough pill to swallow for the business community, especially us trying to increase the commercial tax base. That one is probably not going to be a popular decision if that was the way council was to go. But just a couple comments.
Thank you, Mayor. Anything else? Director Rashan, since no other one, I do have a couple. The reserves is concerning, the 1.195, and I feel like we're borrowing from Peter to pay Paul. And I feel next year we're gonna have to borrow from someone to pay Peter and Paul. And that's not a good scenario. I know when we consolidated, I, as a counselor, we tried to reduce the tax rate. We did. And sometimes you have to reflect on what you did. And maybe we were too aggressive at the time. I think we're a growing municipality. I hate to see recreation cuts, especially with the facility we have. We're increasing. It's part of our strategic plan moving forward. Staffing drives me crazy. I get it all, but I can live with that because it came to us first and then we went back and then we took it off, and we're known for that. So I feel for this budget, I do think deferring is not going to be the answer. I think, and maybe it's a tough conversation today as well as down the road. But I think if we leave it to down the road, that conversation is going to be even tougher because it's going to be bigger. That's just my thought. I think we are definitely going to look at a tax increase of some sort because we're never going to get to where we were. And, when you look at the percentages, and I've seen them, I mean, I think maybe we have to look at it that way. It's not going to be an easy pill to swallow for anyone. But I think what we're trying to do is only going to delay and make it worse next year. And we'll be sitting here for 10 days trying to figure out where we get to pay Peter and Paul. Just my thoughts, and I don't know what the answer is, and relying on staff maybe to give us a little direction. The debt service, we're just delaying it, so it's still going to be there next year. And then anything that comes up this year between now and April, what do we do? Do we add it? Do we defer everything? We're just moving it. So that's my thought. I see another light on. So Councillor Ivy.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, my comment was just going to be that in the few minutes that we've looked at or talked about the list that came out operationally, is that it's a long list to just kind of scan through and try and pick, and the numbers aren't large for any individual item here. I'll just say that generally, 20,000 on flood action, but it's to pick through those, and it's not such an easy task here, even with this list, which is far smaller than the other 157 pages of detail that we've been trying to pick our way through. So I don't know how we do that, except again, I don't endorse us pushing the problem out to next year. I don't think that's going to do us any good. I will speak to, when we talked about this last week, it seems like we've kind of segued into council discussion here. Are we into that, or what?
I don't know if we are, but we
So
got
if we're not,
ourselves there.
Yeah. So I'll just leave it at that for now, and then I'll save it for that piece. But just this list as a single item, like Councillor Remy able to look at it and quickly pick off the programs being affected and so on. My mind isn't that focused yet on that piece of it. So, but I think that's really important because we have programs out there that that really do make a difference in the community for people beyond what our core service offering is and what we must provide by and large. So there's factors there to be taken into account with that. So,
Mayor Zabian?
Yeah, and just because we did receive an email, I think it was yesterday, from Dial Ride requesting in addition to the budget. I'm not sure if all staff were tagged on that, but I'm certain all of council was anyways. But so that's still up for consideration if the group was willing or wanting to consider that. So yeah.
And note it. Any further comments? If not, Director Rashawn?
So if there's no further comments, I'm asking for direction before we go on break so I can make all the adjustments I need for the budget motions. Sorry, my brain just went, no.
Just quickly, just looking at, was there an update from I think we're jumping ahead, but I think you're at discussion and direction for now. Anything on the Royal RCMP? Was there any update from that, or you want to wait on?
Yeah, sorry. So we were able to get one vehicle deferred of the three, and that would have been already included in the 5 cent reduction that I had. It was in part of the protective services adjustment of 115,000. So that would have been the vehicle as well as the reduction for legal, for bylaw, and the position for building official.
Okay, I just thought it would be good to note that now. So, Councillor Remy.
Thank you, Chair, through you. Director Roshan, did you say that anything that ends in blue was like a 3-year average? So it was just like making the more accurate figures that.
Yeah, so through your worship, so we knew that this list would be coming to council pretty nearing the last minute. So we color coded it to make it a little easier. So the blues are just accuracy adjustments that we can make pretty quick. And then everything else on that list would require further direction or from council.
Can I suggest that we do go through and do those accuracy adjustments though, if there's no impact on programming, if that kind of makes sense to me, even though it may not be a huge impact that we're looking for, but I mean, at least it's accurate, not to continue using that word over and over, but.
Yep. And you know what, as we get more information, there's going to be more information coming every day. So we could constantly be making this more accurate. Sometimes it works in our favor. Sometimes it doesn't always. But yeah, we can definitely do that. My biggest thing will be direction from council on what they want to do. If they want to reduce the draw on reserve or if they want to change the tax rate. So that would be my direction for those accuracy adjustments.
Okay, council, we are at that time. So, discussion, direction. So once you have a little bit of time here to take this all in, Director Rashawn is looking for our direction on how you want to proceed. I'm seeing no light, so we're a quiet bunch. I'm just wondering, do you want Mayor Zabian?
I through you, Chair, and again, I don't want to put words in for any counselor or any of my colleagues' is mouths, but it's a long list, and to read through it, to look at the amounts and to look at the details and whether it's service related or not, whether it's an average or it's accuracy, and maybe a 15-minute break just to give counselors some time to really go through the list. And we've just been presented it, so it's just
Sure.
Me on my end looking at it, I think I know where I stand, but it might be more prudent.
I was just going to suggest that because the silence is kind of quiet, but do we want Director Sean to walk us through it, or do you want the 15-minute break to do it on your own? I'm at the will of council. So don't everyone speak at once.
Another
Counselor M- Go ahead.
recommendation too, if council does wish to have a few minutes to review it, if it is the wishes that we make the accuracy adjustments, I can already work on those while we're on break so that I can bring back some numbers because it won't take me very long to make those adjustments.
Okay, do you want to take a 10-minute recess so everyone has an opportunity to look through this? Counselor Paul Morton, do you have a,
So you take the 15-minute break, look at it, decipher, these numbers I'm looking at aren't gonna make a difference anyway.
no, okay, so we'll have 15 minutes for everyone to regroup and come back and not be so silent, please. So we'll break until 5 to 6. So everyone at home, we will be back at 5 to 6. Welcome back, everyone. We're back after a quick recess for our special budget meeting. So I'm going to turn the floor over to Director Rashawn.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm just trying to get back into Zoom here. There we go. And I'll share my screen. All right, so I do apologize. I won't have a lovely little pointer this time. However, I'll go through these quickly with council, and I'll have my paper copy here with me to kind of give checks or minuses to each of them, depending on if you guys want to proceed or not proceed. And then we'll make those adjustments. So the first thing is training and development for financial services, and I'll go over I'll say a couple and then I'll stop. Then there's a accuracy adjustment for the wellness program from other general admin, and that's just based on prior year's utilization. And then we have a reduction in our IT for a new OWL camera purchase. We also have 8,500 for Teams phone. So this is a transition that we were hoping to do this year. We're going to delay that transition, but unfortunately, because we're delaying it, we have to add back replacements of our other phones. So that's what you'll see on the second line. And then we have camera system study. So we have indicated that could be delayed. However, there's potential security concern. Though nothing's happened yet, we just wanted to highlight it. Then we have our public Wi-Fi system study, which again is delayed, but again, security concern. And then the complaint tracking system, which is delayed in IT. So I'll stop there before we get into the next section. Any comments, questions on that area? Any direction for that area?
Any questions, Counselor? Counselor Ivy.
Yeah, just a couple of quick ones. Is the OWL camera for remote access to give us better remote access, or is that something for replacement here?
The OWL camera would be a replacement for the
Okay.
council chambers here.
Thank you. And the security concerns related to the system study and the Wi-Fi study. So is that suggesting that Wi-Fi, maybe we'd get rid of it altogether? Is it that kind of a security concern, or is it that it's okay. That's good.
Anything further? Director Rashawn, I just have one question just before we go on. So all of these changes, front and back, is a total of 295,000, which is roughly a penny. Okay, I just wanted to clarify that.
Now-
So we all,
Again, roughly a penny, but I'll also quickly clarify to your question. I have indicated in here, there's a couple things in here that actually don't impact the rates, but
Okay.
as part of council's direction, it said all departments. So Riverbank and Maplewood only impact the area rates. Waste diversion and landfill only impact reserve transfers, so they don't impact the rates. Sewer only impacts the ratepayer for sewer rates. And that, again, those rates are set, so it only impacts the bottom line of the sewer. So those are the three that I'd like to highlight, because again, those would need to be subtracted, so it may not necessarily be a whole penny once you remove those.
no, and that's why I just thought council should have that in the front of their mind as we go through these.
And I'll highlight that as I'm highlighting items.
Excellent, thank you. Counselor Remy.
Through you, Chair, just a quick question. Just wondering if council would be okay with just moving any of the accuracy ones. Can we just assume that those could be adjusted as opposed to mentioning them in the?
Direction for everyone here, if everyone wants to go through them first before they make that, or are they all good for Counselor Mayor Zabian? Did you want to comment on that? Or- No, Counselor Ivy?
Well, I think the comment that the 295 is a penny across the board, that it's, and I'm all for saving pennies, but I just don't think that this exercise, and so for that, I would say that the work is appreciated, but what are we going to do with that penny? So we can approve the blues. I think the blues are the easy do's, but then all we're doing is taking that a number that's not even a penny and breaking it down again. And that's what we're going to be trying to find is it's less than a penny already. What's left over is going to be less than what the blues are. So,
And to Counselor Ivy's comment, again, as part of my original request to council would be, what is the direction of those accuracy items? Do you want me to reduce their withdraw from reserves? Or do you want me to try and reduce the rate?
Counselor Remy, did you want to respond to that?
Yeah, I just have a follow-up on these figures. And mostly because I mean, I get it. It's not a penny, or it might be just a little bit of a reduction, those types of things. But we did ask staff to go through their budgets and make changes so we could either lower the tax rate or, to make those changes. So we specifically asked them to go through. This is what they came back with. So no, it may not be 2 cents or 5 cents or whatever, but it's still a reduction or a potential reduction. So I think we asked them to do the work. We gave that direction. So for the 10 minutes or 20 minutes it takes us to go through there, I mean, I get it. It's not massive, but it's still a change.
Okay. Mayor Zabian, did you have anything you wanted
Yeah,
to?
just on the Teams phone and then the OIP phone replacements. So the Teams phone, we want to delay, but then we have to replace what we currently have. So next year we're gonna purchase the Teams ones anyway. So we're just adding $4,000 more on a 1 year temporary whatever. So I know it's a drop in the bucket, but yeah, a penny's a penny, and I mean literally a penny is a penny, not on a tax rate penny, but I just don't see that as something I would consider personally if we're going to go line by line. But I
And-
just say,
And to your worship, I'll just elaborate a little bit too. The 8,500 is the initial setup. It will be much less after that initial year because we'll have purchased the equipment, and the rates will be different and lower than what we're currently paying. So that was part of the transition piece.
At the will of council, we can go through them as we're going and then add comments after. Mayor Zabian?
yeah, I think Director Rashawn gave us the first group. There's not much direction on that. So maybe let's move on to the next grouping and see if anything catches anybody's attention that way, Chair. And that way we can go through. Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you. So moving right along into the next group, and I'm hoping that you can see my mouse on the screen. We have a further proration of salary for a current vacant position for mat leave. So we have that. And then we have the reduction for accuracy purposes to better align with last year's actuals for mandated communication. Then we have a reduction for the flood action plan, which is a removal of an applicant due to a sale of a property. And then we have a highlighted pink area. So again, if we were to go to council's original direction of reducing each budget by half, this would be the area where we would have to reduce, and why we highlighted in pink, because we're not recommending that to council. But if council wishes to make that direction, we will reduce that, but it will have impacts on service or strategic plans. Then we have 4,500 for supplies and maintenance. This is removal of a safety dog lift. So in the staff area, so this has a safety concern attached to it. And then we have a $1,000 reduction in general projects for Riverbank. Again, this one only impacts the Hantsport area rate. And this is just based on a 3-year average. And same with the general project accuracy adjustment for Maplewood. And it only has impacts on the Windsor area rate. And then grounds maintenance for the Maplewood Cemetery, which again only has impact on the Windsor general rate, but it is an accuracy adjustment. So I'll stop there. That's another big grouping. See if there's any direction or questions. I do have my directors with me today. So if there's any specific questions, I can call on them.
Okay. Counselor Smith.
Yep, thank you, Chair. Just wondering what CAC is.
Climate Action Committee.
Okay.
Any other? Counselor Remy.
Through you, Chair, I think if there was a safety concern with sorry, I just lost it. The safety dog lift, I don't think we should be considering removing anything if there's a safety risk. I assume safety risk to employees, staff. Yeah, I mean, if we are talking about that stuff for $4,500, if it's going to improve their safety, then it's probably something we should consider putting in my opinion.
Anything else? Okay, carry on, Director Rashawn.
All right. So moving into the next grouping, we have emergency response costs. We've reduced that by 5,000. That can be spoken to by myself or the CAO, but we budget for response costs. A lot of the times our responses are covered. However, there is some instances where they may not be. So again, and there's a little bit of budgeting for potential. So we're just reducing that. Then we have a reduction due to the removal of the building official position. So the next few are just as a reduction relating to that. I'm not going to go over each of the amounts, but mileage and expenses, training, memberships, telephones, office supplies, all of those things that would go along with hiring a new position. So those would be the next accuracy adjustment. And then I've highlighted two areas under CD admin, which again, I've highlighted in pink. Those ones are highlighted in pink because under that tab, we couldn't, there wasn't any areas to highlight with reduction to meet the direction of council. So these would be the areas in which we would reduce. However, they would have impacts on our ability to maintain service levels at the previous year's amount. So that would be something for council if they wanted us to further reduce CD admin. And I'll stop there in case there's any questions or direction.
Counselors, any questions for Director Rashawn on this group? Direction? Okay, seeing none, Carly, we'll
All right.
continue on.
So the next three are for the pool. Again, all of these are accuracy adjustments based on 3-year averages relating to training and development, building maintenance, and program supplies. Then we have parks and grounds. So we have overtime. So this is to maintain current service levels. So this would be no additional service level. And then we have training and development, which is based on a 3-year average for accuracy. And then under the parks and grounds maintenance, we have 7,500 reduction for the best key program. That was something new proposed in this budget, and Kathy can speak to what that key program is. And then we have a reduction of 5,100 for parks and grounds snow removal, and that's to maintain current services as of last year. So there was potential increase in the services associated to the Falmouth Mini Park. So that would not be something we could take on this year based on the direction of council. And I'll stop there in case there's any questions.
Any questions on that group for Director Rashawn? Counselor Bob Morton.
Yeah, thank you, Worship. I'm just curious what the best key program is. I think I know, but
Sorry, it's just literally keying all our sites the same. So it's a best key. That's what they're called.
thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Being none, Director Rashawn, we'll move on.
Thank you. So next we have programs, our next section. I'll probably stop at the end of programs. So we have our hourly term students. So the removal of 2 programs for winter staff. And both, so you'll see there's 2 lines associated to that. Both of them would be relating to the benefits and the salaries for those folks. And then we have an accuracy adjustment for staff identification, which would be uniforms and branding related items for folks coming in. And that would be for the entire recreation community development department, not just programs. Then we have a reduction in summer camp supplies. So this would be reducing in supply spending, and our sports supplies, which would be a reduction or based on the 3-year average. And then we have our program contractors, which would be a reduction of service. Is there any questions relating to the program section?
Any questions for Director Rashawn? Seeing none, well, Counselor Remy?
No, sorry, just
No,
through you,
okay.
through you, Chair. It was the removal of the programming. I think, just to reiterate the comment that was made earlier on when we were chatting about this, just because I assume that means reduction in programming. So I'd rather not see those removed.
Okay.
If I'm making the assumption that those are two of the ones that would reduce programming, correct?
Yeah, programming associated to winter.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mayor
Nick?
Zabian? Oh, sorry.
I'm just looking at Kathy for a nod. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Through you, Chair, just to clarify, these aren't reflected in any of the rates that Director Rashawn has proposed coming in. These are just what staff are bringing to council if council wishes to make any of those. But we haven't seen any direction on anything yet. So
No.
okay.
Okay. I think everyone's clear on that.
Okay.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. Moving on, then we move into our community economic development. We have accuracy adjustments here for mileage and expenses, operating supplies and services, and community and volunteer recognition. And then we have our civic centers, which we have Brooklyn Civic Center. So there's a reduction of 5,000 to building maintenance and supplies. And this is just to maintain current service levels that we're already providing. So any additional services would not be accounted for within that number. And then Windsor Community Center. All right, it's the next few items. So we have community center wages, we have operating supplies and services, and we have building maintenance. And 2 of those are adjustments for 3-year averages.
Any questions on any of those? Counselor Bob Morton?
Yeah, thank you. Community center wages, does that mean we would have less open time or less staff time there, or is that just?
Director Keel will answer
seems like a
that.
fairly busy spot these days?
Sure, we would look to tighten up the scheduling for the facility.
Any other questions? Seeing none, Director Rashawn, we'll move on.
All right, so I think what I'll do for the last little bit, where we're almost at the end of the page, I'll cover the rest, and then we'll flip over our page here. So the next area is sports complex. So we have hourly part-time removal of summer student. So that is that reduction. Then we have branding, communication, advertising 3-year average adjustment. And then we have 5,000 for building maintenance to maintain current services, no additional services. Then we have hourly part-time under the Welcome Center. So again, that would just be a staff reduction in the Welcome Center. And we have mileage and expenses for King Street. And then we have building maintenance, and I've highlighted those 4 in the next category. So this would be 100 King, 76 Morrison, the Windsor Library, and the Hansport Library. So those have been highlighted in pink because we weren't able to get down to the 0.5%. But if we were to reduce, this would be the area we would, but it would have service impacts associated to maybe cleaning and all of those items. Director Richard can speak to them. But again, that would require further direction from council if you want further reductions. And then the last item on the page is the transfer to reserves, which I proposed earlier this evening for the courthouse shortfall, if that was an option for council, where we were able to reduce some of the withdrawals from reserves for other capital projects. Is there any questions on those ones before we flip the page?
Any questions, counselors, on the last few on the page 1? Seeing none, we're going to carry on to the back page.
All right, so going over roads. So we have maintenance and equipment for their fleet and small tools. So we have a reduction of 20,000. So deferring this maintenance will have future costs, obviously, if you don't maintain your equipment. It will cost you later on. Fleet fuel is a reduction of 5,000. We have street, storm, sidewalk maintenance, and stormwater. And there is a $10,000 reduction proposed there, and this would have service level impacts. And then we have a $10,000 reduction in our snow and ice control, which would also have service level impacts. And we have $5,000 for a reduction for the parking lot lease. And I'll stop there before we get into sewer in case there's any questions on roads.
Any questions on roads, council? Being no lights, we'll carry on.
The next grouping I'll make a little bit larger because I'll try and cover all of sewer, and then we'll get into the last few items here. So sewer, we have a reduction in mileage of 500. We have a reduction in training and development of 200. We have fleet maintenance, reduction of 8,000, which again, similar to previous comments, deferral of maintenance can impact future costs. We have a reduction in fuel, so reducing inspection and supervision. So that means less inspection and supervision, which means less trips and less usage of fuel. And then we have 10,000 in the manhole structure. This is less repairs to reduce I'll have to get Director Richard to comment on that. And then 5,000 for lift station maintenance. And again, there's going to be a lot of maintenance for the next few items, and all of these would be deferring maintenance, which could impact costs later on. So Lagoon Drive maintenance, Wentworth maintenance, and Falmouth maintenance for all of those plants. And that brings us to the end of sewer. And I'll just put a little quick reminder that sewer does not impact the tax rate. So all of these changes would not have any impact on the rate proposed. These are just, again, following the direction of council for all departments to come back with half of what they proposed.
Any questions on the sewer councils? Councillor John Smith?
Thank you, Chair. So those, the ones on the sewer, they don't have any impact on the tax rate,
Nope.
but they'll have an impact on the water utility rate,
No.
would they? No?
So the sewer rate is set by council. So that's a set rate. What it would impact is either more of a deficit or less of a deficit. Any changes there. So it just impacts the bottom line of the sewer system.
So if the sewer system had a surplus?
It goes into the sewer capital
Okay,
reserve. Yeah.
okay, great. Thank you.
Right now, I believe they're recommending, and I don't have it right in front of me, and I'm screen sharing right now, but there is a deficit proposed. So reduce the proposed deficit.
Great, thank you.
Councillor Paul Wheaton?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just probably a question for Director Richard, but roughly about 25,000 there in deferred sewer maintenance. If we get ourselves in a pinch on that, that could be a lot higher in future years. This type of maintenance is something I'm sure is something that should be, on a monthly, yearly basis, whatever it is. And as you said, Director Rashawn, it's not going to affect the tax rate. Might not be a good area to play with.
Through you, Chair.
Sure.
My only comment is we've been deferring maintenance for sewer for many, many years. We're trying to play catch up. So yeah, not recommended.
Okay, Councillor Bob Morton?
Oh, thank you, Worship. Just drawing a blank. I'm just gonna go up to the last section if I can for a second.
Sure.
Back to roads, parking lot lease, drawing a blank on that. I think I should know what that is, but I just have to ask.
I might get Director Richard to help me with this one, but this would be close to the bottom of King Street, right there by the coach house. Is that correct?
So it's the Dufferin Place. If everyone's familiar with Dufferin Place, it's the parking lot. It's a little cul-de-sac where people, it's like a carpool parking lot. It's leased land from the railroad, so we lease that.
Seeing no other lights, we'll move on.
So the next few items I'll go over with council. The waste diversion, again, you'll see I've written there, it has no impact on the tax rates, and the decreases there are pretty small as it's not a very big budget. So we have overtime, mileage and expenses, and training and development. Then we get into the landfill, and the landfill, again, is not an item that impacts the tax rate because it is a transfer from our ARO reserve. So with that, we have a 5,700 reduction in site maintenance. So this has additional work and costs in future years. So it's just deferring work until later. Then the next two items are within waste collection, and a lot of the costs within waste collection are fixed due to the new contract. So the areas in which we were able to reduce were the green bins for the waste collection in the West Hants community and the bins in the waste collection in the Windsor community. Those are really the only two areas where we can reduce in that. So if council wishes to go further, there would be a broader discussion on what we were able to do in that area.
Any questions, council? Being no lights, we're at the end of the 2 pages. Thank you, Carly, for doing that.
Of
going through
course.
those, so.
No, of course. So now I'm just looking for direction on what council wishes to include or not include, and then I can go back and make some changes. I will put a little, while I was on break, I was just doing a little bit of review, and I noticed I left 9 Lives Cat Society in there. So that is going to be removed based on council's previous direction as well. So I do apologize. So that's a $5,000 reduction.
Perfect, thank you. Counselor Yanish.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I'm comfortable with the reductions as they've been outlined by staff.
Okay. Counselor Bob Martin.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Certainly the accuracy adjustments, I think those are fairly easy and straightforward. I think no brainer, let's do those. I really wouldn't want to see, as highlighted previously, the programming reductions. As the mayor stated, we've seen the impact that that's had on a lot of the families, and I wouldn't want to see that go away. It's sometimes it's the only thing those families get to do, and it's at a great cost, and sometimes at nothing. The other thing I wouldn't want to see go away is the extra hours at the community center. What a busy spot that's become. So if we reduce that, that won't be as busy, and again, cost effective or no cost to some residents who that's what they get for extracurricular. So other than that, a lot of the others I would be fine with, but the accuracy adjustments and those couple of things I wouldn't want to see those couple go away, but accuracy adjustments for sure.
Thank you. Any other comments from counselors, direction on these items? Okay, Counselor Remy.
Through you, Chair. I mean, I've already said my part about the other things, but on the back sheet, the stuff that has to do with deferring the maintenance on some of that equipment. I mean, obviously the sewer stuff, or not obviously, sorry, I shouldn't have said obviously. I agree with the sewer stuff, but also with the road, under the road category, only because I mean, I don't know about the rest of you, but I know that many of my complaints have to do with roads, and if the equipment's being used or it's not being serviced properly and we don't have access to it, then yeah, so I'd like to see that not be deferred. I think the cost would just increase later on.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments from counselors? So seeing none, we have a recommendation to go through with all of them. And then I've heard from a couple counselors who have picked their own. So if the rest doesn't have direction, I'm gonna go through the recommendations as I have, and we can do a show of hands with different scenarios, and between myself and hopefully Director Rashan will capture what we receive. Are you good with that? If no one else has anything to?
Yeah, through your worship, I kind of starred ones that had comments so that none of the items got missed in this process. So another one would be the bylaw safety lift that was mentioned earlier. The programs have been mentioned a couple of times. The phones were mentioned by the mayor. The studies were mentioned by Counselor Ivy. So again, I just don't want to miss anything. So again, if we want, I can go through groupings and we can kind of get checks and minuses. I've already put checks next to all the blues, if that's how council wishes to go. And then the rest we can,
Okay, well, let's ask. Is everyone are good to make the changes with the blues? Show of hands. So we're good on the blues, Carly? So do you want to do it that way? We've had, so the blues are okay. So do you want to do them one by one after that, or do it by the programs? They don't want to cut programs, no programming reductions, this community center reduction, they don't want to see. And the roads and the sewer. We could do the back page first, maybe. It looks like the easiest.
Yeah.
So why
and
don't
your
we?
worship, maybe I might make a recommendation. Maybe we group the department changes together and we say anything you want to move forward with versus anything you don't want to. So we'll make, anybody can bring forward the items they want to move forward in my recommendation. Again, this is up to you, your worship, and we'll just go by department.
Let's
and
do
then I
that.
can do the, yeah.
Okay, so we'll do roads first on the backside, just because I think this is going to be the easiest section to go through where it's all one. So do you want to see the cuts as given on this page for roads? We'll do a show of hands. 1, 2, 3. We only have 4, so that's a no. Okay. So next on, we're in to see the cuts on sewer. So the reducing the maintenance inspections on sewer, do you want to put that one through? Show of hands. Seeing none, so those will not go through. The next one is waste diversion. So there's no impact on the tax for that, right? So
Correct.
do you want to see those go through? Show of hands. Okay, so none. Landfill maintenance, additional work costs for future years, 5,700. Do you want to see that one come off or go through? So we only have 4 to go through. So we're taking it off. I said that wrong. That was my fault. Okay.
So that one's a check here. Okay, perfect.
Can I get,
No.
That one-
They want it left on.
They want it left on. Okay, perfect.
And then waste collection for the green bins for West Hants and Windsor green bins. So 7,500. Do you want Counselor John Smith? Do you have a question?
yes, can I get clarification on leaving it on or taking it out?
Sorry, I think the roads we took out and the sewer we took out.
So
Oh,
sewer
so-
stays on,
Sewer stays on. Okay.
roads stay on,
Okay.
waste diversion stays on, and landfill stays on at this point. I have
Okay.
all X's so far.
So
We aren't
just
removing them.
clarification on what stays on means.
Not
Stays
not
within the
removing.
budget.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
So the next proposed is the waste, and that's to stay in the budget.
In the budget. And that's the green bins. All those in favor to leave it in the budget? Counselor Wheaton.
Just what is exactly the green bins? Is that the cost of the green bins themselves, or is that the cost to collect them?
I believe, and I will have Director Richard add to my response, but I believe this is the cost of buying them and replacing them when we have breakage and new residents coming in. We have to give them a green bin. So that's to give new residents green bins, but also some stock so that we can replace the ones that are damaged when we get calls into our waste coordinator.
I would say we should leave those in because anything that doesn't go in the green bin is just going to end up in the landfill, and it's just
And we removed the road.
going to make a different problem.
Road stay.
So I would say to leave the green bins in.
I'm going to take him walking away that I answered that perfectly.
Director Rashawn, I think I'm hearing we need some clarity on
Okay.
what we just voted for.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
All right.
so we are voting to take it off this list, all of it. So
If it
so
stays
that's-
on this list, I'm removing it from budget.
yeah,
If it's removed from this list, I'm not taking it out of budget.
so did everyone realize when they voted what they were voting for? No. Okay. Only on the last one?
All right.
If,
It's fine.
Mayor
if I
Zager.
may, Chair, just
Yeah.
to clarify for everybody. So staff were proposing the changes to remove, let's say, take roads.
Yeah.
Council has decided to leave that in the budget.
To fix the roads. Okay.
Council has decided to leave the sewer portion in the budget,
In the
so
budget.
it wasn't taken out.
Yeah.
Waste diversion wasn't taken out of the budget. Landfill wasn't taken out of the budget. So now we're at the green bins and staff are saying, does council want to remove them from the budget as well or not? So
I think that's
Ju-
all what we thought we were
just to
voting on.
clarify, I know it's just everybody's saying the same thing in a different way and it's confusing, I guess, but
So you're good,
Yep.
Director
I
Rashawn?
have all X's where everything needs to have X's.
The whole back page, and we just haven't done the green bench.
Exactly.
Director Rashawn?
If I could, you answered it
Sure.
correctly, but if it's only a portion of the green bins, certainly the replacement of green bins throughout the year is more. But we looked at what portion we could potentially remove. But the issue is, it may delay some replacement of green bins. If, it's getting close to the end of the year, we used up the budget. Someone may be out without a green bin. So it's just a portion of the green bin replacement. So again, not great, but it's a potential, way to remove some. That's all. Good job on answering.
Edie.
Any questions on the green bins then? So we are voting to take it out of this list. Is what we're doing. So if it comes out of this list,
It stays in budget.
it stays in budget. Is everyone clear on that? We take it out of this list, it's in the budget. Okay, what would you like to do? Take it out of this list?
So it stays in the budget.
Okay, let's just do that. Do you want it to stay in the budget?
Stay in the budget.
Stay in the budget. Okay, you good with that, Carly? Your X isn't?
Yep.
Okay, so we're leaving that in the budget too.
Yeah, good.
I think that's the easiest,
Great try.
leaving it in the budget. So the whole back page is left in the budget.
Perfect.
Okay, everyone's good with that. Okay, in the budget. Front page is yours. Do you want to do it by category?
Yeah, that
Okay.
would be good.
Go right ahead.
All right. So the first category, or do you want to do it by department? Because if we do it by department, then we have financial services.
Sure.
Okay.
Whatever's easiest for you, because you're the one's gonna make the X's and the
Oh,
checkers.
I've got this.
You got it. You go, girl.
All right.
Okay, financial services. So we only have the one, the
Mhm.
training and development for $1,000. Do you want to leave it in the budget? Counselor Remy, did you want?
Yeah.
Leaving it in, so. Okay. We had a show of hands of everyone. Just for note, Counselor Yanish was not at the table, so. So we're leaving it in. And the blue we're leaving in.
Yep.
That's,
So we can
everyone
cut that.
has agreed to leave the blue in the budget to update that.
Yep.
Because they're just adjustments. I'm just looking for nods of heads. I don't want anyone to, we're leaving that as is. Okay. Teams, phones, and the
So this would be IT services.
IT services. So there's 6 items there. Do you want to leave it in the budget or? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 left in. So that's not gonna pass because there's 6 of us here. And again, Counselor Yanish was not here. Counselor Wheaton, do you have a question?
No, I was just going to suggest maybe break out the phones because that seemed to be, as the mayor had stated, it's only a $4,000 savings and you're just going to have to pay for it next year. So maybe we should leave the phones in.
Okay, well, we can go back to the phones. Are you okay with that? Okay, so do you want to leave the phones, just the 2 lines, I guess it would be the 8,500 Teams phone, in the budget? Show of hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's. And now we're on to, you're good with those ones?
Yep, I have all those marked.
Okay, planning. So we're doing the mandated communication.
Yep.
So we just have the salaries for reduction for vacant position for planning, 20,000. Counselor Morton.
Yeah, thank you, Rochelle. Just explain that one to me one more time.
Yeah, so we had already prorated for the staff being off, but we further prorated it this year. It will make it so that next year it's a little bit more of a jump, but just for capacity reasons this year, we looked at lowering it.
Any other questions on planning? I guess it's the only one for planning. I'm sorry. Okay, great. So a vote to leave it in the budget. We have 1, 2 to leave it in, so it's gonna come out of the budget. Okay, so the next 2 is climate action. The pink is not recommended, so I'm not, council, I'm at your, do them separate on that one. So you guys we'll do the first one, flood action. That's the removal from the program due to a sale of property of 20,000.
Again, this one's not going to have an impact on the tax rate either. It's just going to reduce the transfer from the reserve.
Okay, so do you want to leave it in the budget? It won't be spent. So I guess there's really no.
Give it to somebody else. It's
Like,
I think
the property that it was assigned to, the people have moved. So now therefore that application.
I think the question would be,
Yeah.
does council want to
someone else.
lessen the reduction of the draw of the reserves? So just put that amount back into your reserves.
Okay,
If that makes more sense
it does, yeah. So we'll put that amount back in the reserves. All those in favor? Okay. And then the next one was the CAC work plan reduction, and it was not recommended by council. So do you want to stick with, or staff? Do you want to stick with staff's recommendation on that one? Okay. Perfect. We're getting there. Bylaw, supplies and maintenance, removal of the safety dog lift. And I think we had Councillor Remy spoke to leave it in the budget. So we will take a vote to Councillor Larry Pinch.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. What is a safety dog lift?
So it's a lift that would help lift larger dogs into the back of the vehicle so that it is not staff lifting the larger dogs into the vehicle. If I'm explaining this correctly, I am looking at our manager, but it is to relieve somebody handling a bigger dog and trying to put them on the back of a truck, I believe.
Basically, it's a tailgate lift, the same you see on the larger vehicles for hoisting, card freezers, anything, carts going to the stores. Same idea.
And we don't have any
We do not have one
currently.
at this point in time, no.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Chair. I guess through you to Director Sean or bylaw or development, Leslie. So what does staff do when they have an animal that's over 50 pounds? Do they need 2 people to lift it?
Yes, basically.
Okay,
Yeah.
no, I'd recommend leaving it in there because you're gonna tie up two staff members.
Yeah, and most of the times there's two of them within the vehicle anyways. A lot of the times to get the animal, if you can't get them into a crate to get them onto the lift or something like that to pick them up, you're kind of manhandling them underneath. And if that head comes around, if you got a beast like mine, it's not gonna be pretty.
Perfect. So, yeah. So, Counselor Paul Wheaton.
Yeah, I just thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'd vote to leave it in. I have a 150-pound dog, and I wouldn't want anybody to try and pick him up. And we don't have any at present, so I think it's something that we would need down the road.
Okay, so we can do nods of heads. Everyone's good to leave this in the budget. Yep, perfect. Okay, so the next three are for accuracy, so we're going to leave them in the budget. And those are area rates anyway for the cemeteries. All good on that one, folks? Perfect. The next one is emergency response costs for EMO, $5,000 to, so I'm looking for a show of hands to leave it in the budget. Counselor Larry Pinch.
I'm sorry. What does that include that's within the $5,000?
So
Oh.
you still have an allocation in the budget. It's just we've reduced it because you're budgeting for the unknown. So it's
Okay.
not that we're in trouble if something were to happen.
Okay.
It's just like anything else. And as Carly has said, it's typically in the larger scale events, it's refundable by DFA.
Mhm.
So.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions on that one? Do you want to leave it in the budget? So there's only three, so that will be taken out of the budget. Okay, the next ones for building inspection are blue. So it was already indicated we would leave those in the budget for updates. The next one is CD admin and they're pink. That's the branding, communication, advertising, general recreation expense, and that was not recommended by staff. So are we good to accept their recommendation? I see a couple shaking heads. Everyone good to Counselor Ivy?
Yeah, there's no dollar amount associated with that. There's a couple here there's a couple that have no dollar amounts. What's the?
Yep. So through your worship, as I was going through, I highlighted that anything in pink didn't have a number associated to it because we weren't able to get to the half percentage without adjusting these categories. And it wasn't our recommendation to because it would impact service delivery. So it would have further discussion of council would need to be had before we recommended amount. But if council wanted us to continue down the road of halving our proposed increases, these would be the areas we would adjust.
Okay, so we're not seeing any amount there, and the reason for that is?
Because it would have impacts on service delivery, but we've highlighted them if council wishes to still move forward with half of the proposed increase.
But we have no idea what that amount is, though.
No.
No.
But again, it would be if we were looking as if we had to half our proposed increase, it would be within that amount, whatever we took out of that department.
Mayor Zabian?
So would that be like newsletter based information going out to residents on whatever it may be? Like I'm just looking at communication, advertising, branding. I know we have our highway signages planned to go up. I know we do a newsletter. I'm just trying to, you know, why they're not being recommended because what impact would it really have?
Yeah, well, some of what you're mentioning actually falls under CED. So you would see most of actually what you had noted there. So within the branding, communications and advertising, it would be something that would impact the whole department is the way we look at it. So that's that line, and that the value currently in the budget is $2,500 for that. And there was no increase that we had suggested within the budget. And then the general recreation expenses, that line is typically what we see is it's kind of like a catch-all. So if we don't have a line for it somewhere else, like legal fees, which is what it has been in the past, that's where the legal fees would be charged to. So we don't have, a set line for something like that. So that's why we're recommending to keep that in, and that line is 2,500 as well. And no change. There was no increase in this year from last year.
Good. Okay, so we are looking to leave it in the budget. So a show of hands if you want to leave that in the budget. Okay, that's a majority there. So the next three for the pool are just adjustments, and we've already decided to go with those. The next one is $2,500 for overtime to maintain current services for parks and ground. So do you want to leave that in the budget? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that will stay in. The next one is blue. We have 7,500 Parks and Grounds Maintenance Best Key Program. Looking for a show of hands to leave that in the budget. Okay, that one's coming out. The next one is Parks and Grounds Snow Removal for $5,100. Maintain current services. Parks and Grounds, looking for show of hands to leave it in the budget. 5, so that's coming out. The next one is, I'm going to do the next two together. It's the hourly term students, employer share benefits and this would be a removal of 2 program winter staff. Looking for a show of hands to leave it in the budget. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, so that will stay in. The next one is staff identification, that's blue, so that will stay in. The next one, summer camp supplies, reduction in supply spending. It's $1,000. Show of hands to leave it in the budget. That one's staying in. The next one is blue. $8,000 program contractors. It's a reduction of service for programs. Looking for a show of hands to leave it in the budget. Okay, that stays in. The next 3 are blue, so they will stay in. We have $5,000 building maintenance and supplies, and that's to maintain the current services for the Brooklyn Civic Center. So looking just Counselor Larry Pinch, I just see you might have a question there.
Yes. Is that like building services? So like to maintain the building?
It says building maintenance and supplies, and it's maintain current services. So Director Rashawn, do you want to?
Yeah, so I may call Director Richard and our Director of Community Development up for this one, but this would be so we had proposed an increase in this line just due to the maintenance that was required at that building. However, to maintain our current services, we reduced it back to 5, so it just means we wouldn't be able to do any additional maintenance. We'd still do maintenance. We just wouldn't be able to do additional maintenance.
So if there's like an issue that there's like a leak or something, we would still be able to mitigate that. It's just that we couldn't do anything above and beyond.
Again, we would work within our budget, within that a lot. It's not a large budget within that area. So if we had capacity within our budget, we might be able to address that, but we might have to come back to council if we don't have capacity within our budget to account for something. And if it is a major leak like we've had in the past from the roof, it might require motions of council anyway, because it might have capital impacts.
Any other questions on that one? So a show of hands to leave that in the budget. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, I just saw a hand shoot up over here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that will stay in. The next one is community center wages for the Windsor Community Center, $10,000. Counselor Larry Pinch,
You can tell by my face.
I can. You wouldn't be a very good poker player.
No, I'm not. Does that mean that the community center won't be open as often for like rentals and things of that nature? Or does it just mean that there'll be less like maintenance within the building
I
for
don't
the
want to
staff?
speak for the director, but I think she's mentioned tidying up or tightening up the schedule.
We're not planning to reduce
Okay.
the hours that it's open, just tightening up the schedule to better reflect or to better serve the municipality.
Okay.
So looking to a show of hands to leave that 10,000 in the budget. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that will be taken out. Okay, the next two are blue for the Windsor Community Center. Then we go 11,933 hourly part-time. It's removal of a summer student for the sport complex. Show of hands to leave that in the budget. Oh, Counselor John Smith has a question before we do that.
I do. My question is to the Director of Recreation, wondering how many summer students we have at the sports complex.
Specific to that facility, this would be the only one. We do have program staff that are operating out of there currently and will throughout the summer as well.
And those are regular staff? Regular.
Summer staff, yes. So they'll be looking after our summer camp programs and things like that. This position would be for the facility specifically and supporting, I guess, hours potentially within the evenings or help assisting with maintenance outside. So mowing and that type of stuff around the facility.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, show of hands again, sorry, to leave it in the budget. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, it's staying in. The next one is branding. It's blue, so it's staying in. So the next one is the sports complex again, $5,000 for building maintenance to maintain current services. So looking for show of hands to leave it in. 2, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, that's staying in. The next one is staff reduction for the Welcome Center. It's a student position. I wrote that down. Correct me if I'm wrong. For $68.51 hourly part-time. Looking for show of hands to leave that in the budget. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That stays in. The next one is $100 for mileage and expenses for 100 King Street. Looking for show of hands to leave it in the budget. That will be taken out of the budget. The next four are reduction service delivery that staff is not recommending. It's for 100 King Street, 76 Morrison, the Windsor Library, and the Hantsport Library. Any questions on that before I ask council? Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Chair. It's for you to the CEO or Director Sean. How much, like, is there a dollar value on that? I'm just curious.
For the building maintenance? I can pull it out of each of the budgets. Now, again, following council's original direction to half the percentage increase, this was one of the areas that Director Richard highlighted could be reduced. However, we would have to make adjustments to cleaning services and most likely, or some other services, which could have impacts on that service delivery. So if you can give me a sec, I can go and pull the actual budget figures out for you. So it's 60 at 100 King and 40 at 76 Morrison. And I'll get the library ones here for you second. Sorry, my computer died.
Uh-oh.
Give me a second.
Do we need to add that to the budget?
That's good.
CAO, did you? Todd's got it? Okay.
Sure. So library, building maintenance, 13,000 at library, Windsor Library, building maintenance in Hansport, 9,000. So again, the reduction in building maintenance would most likely be through cleaning services. We have standing offer for HVAC maintenance. A conversation with them, just less maintenance, less cleaning of filters. However, we just experienced last week, we lost a compressor on our HVAC system at 100 King Street. We get the quote for that piece of equipment. The compressor is $12,000. So that's an impact to our budget already that we weren't expecting. So it's things like this in building maintenance that come up out of our control that certainly need to be replaced. And if we're not maintaining this type of equipment, those things may happen more frequently.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions on that one? So a show of hands to leave it in the budget. Staff is not recommending this one. So it will stay in the budget. And the last one is the transfer, and I believe I had 47,000 written down from operating. So it's a transfer from reserves for the courthouse shortfall. Any questions on that one? So looking to, I guess, take the recommendation to use operating reserves of 47,000. Is that what you're looking for, Carly? So to be clear, we would be taking 47,000 from the operating reserves. Show of hands if you're in favor of, oh, Councillor Remy.
Sorry, through you,
No,
Chair,
you're
just a
good.
quick question. So if the intention of council, if we decide to sell the building, could we not just put that money back in there? Like, I'm not understanding what we're doing with this.
Director Rashan, do you want to?
Yeah. So again, this was just another thought that I had with our directors and CAO as we were going through. I believe CAO brought it up that this is a 1-year blip. So to mitigate that, we could take from reserves. This would be an operating reserve to cover operating expenses. However, if we sell the property, it is a sale of a capital asset, in which case it goes into the capital reserve.
Is that good, Councillor Remy? Did you have a follow-up or is you're good? You're thinking, I'll go to Councillor Larry Pinch and I can come back.
Thank you. So to follow up on that then, if we take this money out of the reserves and we sell the building, we can't put the money back in the reserve. So then the 47,000 is out of the operating reserves and can only go back into the capital reserves from the sale.
So per the MGA, the sale of a capital asset, it has to go into a capital reserve. Yeah, so I'd have to do that first. Then we could utilize capital reserves for building maintenance and other areas to reduce on the backside.
And then put it
Yeah.
back in.
Based on my review of the MGA, there's nothing that prevents council from making a motion. However, I can't put the sale proceeds in there. So it would have to come back to council for direction. I have to put it into the capital reserve.
I just wanted, there's a way that we could put it back in is all I was looking. Yes. Okay.
Just-
CAO, yep.
And within this discussion, you just returned 20 from the home flood protection program. So
Yeah.
it's kind of a net thing that's happening there. And again, this is decommissioning related costs that may or may not reach that amount. And we may
Exactly.
keep it too, based on what we think. So, yep.
And again, that transfer wouldn't happen till the end of the year. We don't do any of our reserve transfers until the end of the year. So it would reduce any funding that we receive from Department of Justice. And then the net after that revenue, we would take from reserves based on whatever's expensed that year.
Anything further on that before I go to it? So a show of hands, if you want to take the 47,000 or whatever owed of operating reserves. Show of hands, if you want it taken operating reserves. 1, 2, 3. So that's a no. Okay.
So lastly, Your Worship, before we get into the final stages of direction, if council could give me an indication on whether or not what strategy they would like me to apply these changes that you just approved. So my takeaway is I'm going to take this list, I'll shorten it, I'll bring it back so that you can review. I didn't miss anything as well. I'll present how those impacted the tax rates and what that does. I'll also make that 9 lives adjustment. So I do apologize. I missed that.
No problem.
And from there, what strategy for these changes do you want me to apply? Do you want me to reduce the capital or the operating reserve withdraw, or do you want me to reduce the tax rate?
Mayor, oh. So do you want to put that to a vote?
Because
Okay.
it'll help me when I'm doing my number crunching, if I know if I'm reducing reserves or if I'm leaving the tax rate the same and reducing the reserve withdraw, or if I'm changing the tax proposed increase and taking either more or less from the reserves based on that.
Okay, so does everyone understand that? So I think the easiest way to ask that is, do you want to use operating reserves and not move the tax rate? So do you want to, is that clear what I'm asking on, do you want to utilize operating reserves?
The benefit.
The benefit, yeah,
Maybe I could try.
sure, see
You
you.
have created a benefit here. You've reduced some costs. Do you want it to reduce the tax rate or reduce your utilization of the operating reserve?
Counselor Wheaton,
I want to reduce the tax rate.
okay. Mayor Zabian,
So I think the first question you should ask is if council wants to take the changes and to reduce their tax rate, and
Okay.
that'll solve it easily.
easier,
Again.
okay. So you've made the changes. Do you want to reduce the tax rate? Show of hands. 4, 5. So that's a no.
All right. So alternatively, I'll come back with a reduction in our withdrawal from reserves and I'll make these adjustments while we're on break. And if there's no further direction.
Council, this is our time. We've gone through everything. So all we've done is the things that she brought to us now. Is there anything else that was discussed that you want to see added or taken out? Mayor Zabian.
Just on that last direction, Chair, if Director Rashawn could just highlight the total amount of that direction and what that would have made impact on tax rate as opposed to going back into reserves. I think that would clarify for anybody watching at home why council made the decision that it did.
Are you good?
Thank you, Your Worship. To the mayor, the intention was to redact the list based on your direction and bring back an updated total so that I could also get verification that I didn't miss anything that you guys wanted.
Okay, Councillor Remy.
Through you, Chair, just the email that we received from Dial It Ride that the mayor had mentioned earlier, do we want to do that now or
I think
no?
that, yes, is the time because she's going to go away for an hour or so. And when we come back, we're hoping to have a budget. So I'll get to that in a second. I see some lights popping on, so I'll put that on our list. We have Dial a Ride. Councillor Ivy had your light on. Was there something?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And so the only thing that I've got noted here that came up during discussions on, I think, 2 occasions was was in the capital budget, and it had to do with splash pad. And the comments that were made during the presentation of those items was that we would talk about those later in the session, and we haven't. So I just want to highlight that. It's not that, I understand the popularity associated with those 2 items. They were allocated at $450,000 in the coming year and another $450 5 years from now. And so I'm just raising it because of I think those were CBFM funded initiatives, so they weren't necessarily tax item related, but the council here has not talked about them yet, aside from requesting information on them maybe 6 months ago to get a cost. So for what it's worth, I don't know what anybody else's thoughts are on it, but that item hasn't been discussed at this point.
So through your worship, and I may get Director Keogh to come up. I see she's digging through her papers. But I did want to share, I did receive a question on the splash pads, and I would love to share that response with council. So I received a question on what the overall cost of a splash pad would be, if it's just what's in the capital budget. And one of the responses that I had was, that's the initial installation cost. It's not including the ongoing cost after that. So that's something, if council wishes, that they want to have further discussion on, because it was a strategic item that was brought forward. It is a Canada Community Building Fund funded at this point. There is, again, the 5-year projection on that reserve is looking a little bit low. So it may be something that council wishes to defer or bring back a staff report on the full outline cost of operations. Again, we're at the whim of council and what they wish to decide. And I'm sure Director Keogh can speak more to the 450 and what that all includes. If the, again, to support your guys' conversation and direction.
Councillor Ivy, do you have a follow-up down?
Well, I guess the only thing that I would say about that is that also part of the conversation was when we went through that, to be fair, was that it was put in there to create the capacity for that item in the coming year. Not that it necessarily would get approved by council or that it wouldn't. So just my recollection again, kind of off the cuff here a little bit, was that it was creating capacity, but creating capacity within our capital budget, as we know, when we put something in the capital budget, we're typically told when it shows up with a report later on that we approved it in the capital budget. So you really should be approving it now. There is no cost associated with this being in there, but I think, if council has a position on it, now is probably the better time to be taking it. So rather than afterwards or deferring or doing whatever, we haven't talked about it. I thought we should, rather than 6 months from now and trying to figure it out then. So that's thank you.
Okay. Councillor Scott McLean.
Thank you, Chair. Through to Director Rashawn. The 9 Live Cat Rescue, that $5,000 grant, do they still receive a grant through our grants and contribution policy?
I'd have to look at our director to see if they've applied.
They do?
They
Okay.
did.
It's $1,500? Yeah, okay. Thanks.
Okay. I'm going to go to Councillor John Smith, and then I'm going to come back to the dial a ride. I was just trying to see if we did a show of hands of everything. So Councillor John Smith, do you have?
Yeah, just a question around the splash pad. Was it fully funded through the grant process? Did it cover the entire cost of the?
It's funded through the Canada Community Building Fund.
Okay.
So that would be the initial
The install.
But after that, it would be the ongoing. Yeah.
Okay.
That wouldn't be part of the CCBF fund.
Okay, thanks.
Mayor Zabian.
Yeah, through you, Chair, to Director Keogh, if I may. Keogh, splash pads aren't one of those items that you can just build tomorrow type thing. So even if a location was to be found, which we have no location even in comprehension at this point, there aren't too many contractors who build these items as is, eh? So council's probably looking at down the road of anything coming to it in relation to a splash pad. Am I correct to say, or?
Correct. I'm not sure. I know that I say that I know. I believe there's one in the province or in the Atlantic provinces, but I'm not even sure of that. So I probably shouldn't speak to
So
that.
one contractor, but there's not many. So
not that I'm aware of.
It's just one of those things you just can't do tomorrow type thing.
Correct. I mean, it would be a tendered project.
Yeah.
Okay, Councillor Ivy, did you want to follow up with that one?
Not on that one, actually, but 2 other items that we had discussed at the last meeting. One was on the commercial. So I'm not on the splash pad, Kathy, if you're wanting to. apologize, but the one was on the commercial tax increase that had been talked about. And again, I apologize if my memory's off on this and I didn't go back to rewatch the tape to find it, but that we voted to do that. Did we give direction to specifically do that, or was that an item for you to look at and bring back a number, Director O'Shaughnessy? I'm sorry, I can't recall.
There was two associated to the direction that I received. So we talked about increasing the commercial rate to alleviate the residential rate, a small portion. That was not directed to move forward. However, the development societies were directed to move into the general commercial rate specifically. So I moved those specific items, the 105,000 into the commercial rate and out of the residential calculation.
And so my follow-up question on that, if I could, and it goes to the way you described it earlier, was that just the development societies that were carrying that commercial addition, or was it across all commercial?
It's general commercial rate.
General commercial rate.
Yeah. So it was general residential rate. So through our discussions on the 14th, I made the recommendation that we move it into the general commercial rate because it'll impact all three of the communities, because a portion of that is associated to Hansport. And I believe the conversation that night, we were a little late, and I'm looking at Councillor Larry Pinch here because we were talking about how the Hansport area pays the West Hants area rate as well.
Yeah.
So it would be easier to impact the general rate because then it impacts all three communities anyway. And then there's no portioning it out to this portion, because
Right.
the intention was to impact all three.
I remember that part of it, and I just thank you for the clarity and help me remember that. And then the one last one is we talked about the protective component for protective services, I think, and that is still within the budget.
The protective
services
services position.
Yeah.
Yes, we've communicated that within the capacity of the budget. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Seeing no more lights. So of those four, I think we have to deal with dial-a-ride first. So counselors, we all received their email. So Director Remy, you had brought that forward. So I'm looking for direction. Counselor Yanish.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Didn't we request some information from Dial-A-Ride on their provision of services and how they were distributed around the municipality? And this has happened, I think, a number of times, and I think it happened, I think we requested that sometime this past winter. And I'd really like to see that information before I make a commitment here. It's a very, very important service, but it's a very basic request, I think, that we need the information for.
Yeah, I recall them being here for the presentation, but I don't think we've seen anything back from them. I could be mistaken, but I don't believe so. Counselor Ivey.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I recall the conversation as well with them being here and asking for the similar information. And I don't, Director Rashad, do they provide that information to you as part of their updates to us on an annual basis? Do you have access to that we're able to?
I'm just going back to look at their agreement to see if it's specifically what Councillor Yanish is looking for. Again, I know two of the requirements are financial related, not necessarily driver and stat related. So just give me a second here.
So Counselor Larry Pinch has her lights on. So I'm just going to go to her question, Director Rashawn, while you're looking for that agreement.
So agreeable that it is an important service, but I feel the need to make these points because they run through my mind. So they did have a 3-year agreement where they were a line item on the budget from the municipality. They have received considerable federal funding in the past 12 months. And the request came came in a considerable delay to when budget deliberations were occurring. And so I think there are many organizations that are deserving, but unfortunately, we're in a situation where we cannot provide to all of the organizations who are deserving. And they have already received. So from my perspective, I'm not sure that I would be prepared to fund again as a line item for another period of time where the 3 years had already transpired. I know in other organizations where, though this is not a grant, but where we fund processes, the intent of doing so is so that they become sustainable within their own organization, and it buys them time to find other areas of funding that aren't specifically reliant on one particular organization. And so I would hope that, seeing as they have received some federal funding as well, that there are other funding mechanisms within their business model.
Thank you. Counselor Ivy?
Thank you.
Sean's still working on her number here.
Yeah, so thank you. And I appreciate the comments made by my colleague down the line here. I think that is important. And I'll express it that as we've added different organizations on as line items, I've feared that we actually create a dependency versus serving to assist in moving organizations along for a couple of years to establish their own independence of us, because and maybe that's the wrong word to use, dependency, but it gets that you can rely upon, might be a better word, that you can get where you rely upon that funding to always be there. And it may very well not be, as is the nature of organizations like the one that we sit on here. So I think it's important when we're doing that in some fashion, we should be making it more clear that while we may do a line item for 3 years and we're specifying 3 years, that there's a cycle, I think, that it works through to ensure that, or that we find a way to assist in ensuring that they become sustainable without us being the primary source of that sustainability, or shouldn't say primary key. My words may be off a bit here, but I think the intent is clear, that we find a way to make sure that they stand on their own.
So through your worship, as part of their biannual reporting, we do require some statistics. I can't put it up on screen just because of the nature of the document, so I do apologize. And the last report that I have is dated from April to September of 2023, so I have no recent ridership data.
Okay, thank you. So I'm at the will of council here. Seeing no direction, I'm going to move on. So that one's looked after. Any more discussion or thought on how you want to a report, maybe a staff report brought back on the splash pad at another time for operating? And okay, I think that's where we'll leave that one. Commercial tax rate, is there any discussion on that? It was brought back to us. It was highlighted in our handout. Councillor Remy?
Sorry, Chair,
No,
just for
not at all.
clarity, does that mean that we have removed the splash pad from the budget, or that wasn't included in the budget? I apologize with all the discussions.
No,
it's not in there.
It's not in the budget. I think.
Thank you. I was
Just so staff can bring it back. That's just the CBMF is just to.
Or not in the budget. I meant in that funding.
In the funding,
it's not anywhere right now. Is that what we're saying?
No, it's currently in the budget right now to be
Capital.
funded from Canada Community Building Fund.
Okay, so we're going to leave it. The intention is to leave it in there before we get a staff report and know about the operations and all of that stuff, to know about
What
the
I
costs.
just asked.
Yeah, I apologize.
No,
I'm just
that's
trying
okay.
to
Just making
to
sure
make sure that
yeah, so that's all we have. I think the concern was that once it's in the capital budget, we've approved, and if the capital budget gets approved, it's considered that we approved for the splash pad. And I think that was Councillor Ivy's main comment, was once we have something in the capital budget, it's approved in the capital budget. So a staff report will come back with the operational side of it. But if it's in there, we approve the capital budget. It's an approved project.
All right, I'm changing my response then, because I would rather see it removed until we're determining where we want it, if we want it, because I think there was 2 splash pads in total, one for this year and one for next, if I'm not mistaken. And I apologize because I was going to try to look through. But if we're $450,000 and that's not including, the other costs associated with it. And I mean, I completely understand. I know that, it was proposed in our strategic plan that we do consider putting one in Brooklyn. So I feel really worried about this, but at the same token, that's a massive cost. And we've really nickeled and dimed a lot of things and deferred other projects that, staff would be relying on. And in order to, anyway, I would like to see it removed from the capital budget.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Counselor Ivy, sorry, I didn't want to speak, but I was trying to.
No, that's, I mean, that's part of it, is that it's in there as a capacity potential option, right? And I don't think that is the right thing for us to do. That puts us in a potential position of encouraging that we would load up a budget and load up, maybe wrong words too, but that we would add things in that, again, that we haven't reviewed or made a decision on. And I just don't think that's the path we want to go down, especially when we look at the exercise we're trying to work through now to slice things out of the budget that is more than the current tax rate will bear. And I worry about that, A, capital, and B, operationally, that's the reason for wanting to. So that's my unfortunate position as well.
Counselor Larry Pinch.
Thank you through your chair. So for clarification purposes, does that mean there is $450,000 removed out of this year's capital budget if we remove it,
Yes.
which would impact the tax rate?
No.
No.
No, because it's in the.
CCBF. And to comment to your worship, approving the capital budget gives staff the direction. It doesn't necessarily approve the project. It gives staff the direction on what projects you wish us to focus on. And then this would have to go through the tendering process anyway. So it would have to come back to council to get approved again prior to that. So just to keep in mind with the size of this project, the capital budget for the current year is really giving us direction on where you want us to focus on. It's only if it's within the CAO signing authority or the director signing authority that it doesn't come back to council.
Counselor Remy.
Just last comment on this. And I appreciate your patience with this. Then,
No, not at all.
but if it's even giving staff direction, I think I would still like to see it removed, just because I think there's other areas that council discussed during strategic planning, including expanding programs out into the rural regions and stuff that staff could focus on, as opposed to this one project that's going to benefit just one area. I don't think it's a right time to have, and I understand that we put it in there and it's going to take a long time because of the RFPs and waiting and all of those things. But I just think that there's other priorities that we discussed here that to me would be more important than a splash pad in one community.
Counselor John Smith.
Thank you, Chair. So the grant that would fund this, the CBBM, was it?
Canada Community Building Fund.
Okay. So does that grant need to be used? Do we have to designate?
That's
Just our gas tax.
Okay.
Yeah.
So does it need to be allocated this year? Does it need to be
No.
earmarked?
As part of our reporting requirements, we do have to outline our 5-year capital budget to the province, which then gets reviewed by the feds. And then we have to prepare an annual expenditure report, but that is our only requirement under the agreement with the province for the Canada Community Building Funds.
So it sounds like it would be helpful if we had this in. No.
CAO, do you want to?
Are allocated a certain amount each year. If you use it, great. If you don't, it stays in reserve.
Yeah.
So you don't have to spend it. It's there in reserves. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. So I'm going to circle back to the splash pad. There's some discussion now to take it out of the capital year, 5 year. So all those in favor, Counselor McLean. You have the look on your face, so
Thank you, Chair.
I
I
didn't
just,
miss anyone.
thank you, Chair. I guess through all the council and maybe to Director Rashawn. So a lot of the CV, gas tax, we'll say it, it ends up funding a lot of underground items like water and sewer. Am I correct?
So, no.
No?
It is able to fund sewer and water and underground items. However, the direction of previous councils has been to utilize this specific fund for community and rural communities and recreation. So that's where this fund sits. However, there's been some historical projects that have been brought forward from the previous entities that were budgeted through CCBF. So we have utilized CCBF for these. However, if council wishes to change the strategy, then I can go back and change the funding sources for everything and we can rework that however way you want. Just
No.
means that more recreational items would either be relying on grants or borrowing, et cetera.
What I'm trying to say is I like funding these items, the recreational items, with something that impacts the community, that it's recreation. We've done playgrounds before and trails, that kind of thing. I'd be in favor of leaving it in the budget, the splash pad, because it's going to be funded by the gas tax, but that's up to council. So,
Mayor Zabian.
Yeah, I was just going to say very similar to my colleagues' comments right now. A splash pad, while it may be in one community, I think every community will use it. I know we have one at the HMCC hosts one currently, and I see people all the time. I frequent it all the time, and I see people from all over, almost every district at that one. So I just want to say that part. And again, it's a project that I think the community would benefit from and has been brought up numerous times over the multiple years that I can remember anyways. And again, if a project was to come forward from staff, and again, there's a lot that would go into it. I know comments have been made, we approve a capital budget means a project's been approved, but in reality, not so much. If it's something that council doesn't want to proceed with at the time for whatever reason, operational, whatever, there's a lot of information that still has to come forward on it. But yeah.
Not sure who had their light on first, so I'll go down the line. So Counselor Smith.
Thank you, Chair. This is my last comment. I like the idea of leaving it in, leaving a placeholder for it. It allows staff to bring back more information and we can make a decision then.
Thank you. Counselor Larry Pinch.
I was going to say, I appreciate the comments of my colleagues, Councillor Ivy and Councillor Remy, for wanting additional information before we make a decision to move forward. But based on Director Rashawn's follow-up comments about the fact that it would come back to council with a plan to then be approved, so it doesn't mean that it's an automatic. I will then concur with the comments from Councillor McLean and Mayor Zabian, because, and it's likely because I'm in that point in life where I have this personal experience with young kids, but we drive to New Minas to go to the splash pad up there because it's fantastic and we can spend hours at it with the kids and it costs nothing. And also it's like free range. So you don't have a time you have to leave. It's kind of, so it really is, I personally think, an asset in the community. We've definitely spent some time at the Handsport one as well. It's just a little smaller, so we just tend to go to New Minas. But I think that if there was something located, within the municipality, I do think that there would be families who would utilize it from across the region. Understandably accessible wise, as far as transportation goes, that could be difficult for some families, but I think it would be utilized. So I think it should stay in, I guess, is my long-winded answer.
Perfect. Seeing no more lights, I'm going to look for a show of hands to leave the splash pad in the capital budget. 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's tied. So it's a no. So the only other thing was the commercial tax rate. And I don't think, was there any comments on that? Mayor Zabian.
If we want to talk about impacts to the municipality, I'll say it again, Chair. This one will impact, and I'll just leave it at that one.
And to clarify, this is just the 105 for the business development societies that we've already been directed to move.
Okay, and that will put the proposed tax rate for West Hants.
For all three communities up by 6.68 cents.
Yeah, so West Hants would be 1.8468. Hansport 3.8168 and Windsor 3.9168. That's in our paper. So all of those are good. No other to leave the commercial rate as is. Yep, I'm looking. Is everyone good to leave it as is? As is. Yep. Oh, Counselor Yanis.
Please, Madam Chair, explain what as is means.
Well,
As
he's already-
presented?
As presented.
Today.
I've already done it. Yeah. So that's the numbers I just read off. Okay, so Counselor Remy, yep, you're all good. Everyone was shaking heads, so okay. Everyone's good? Nope. Okay, let's do a vote then. Some are shaking their heads and not. All of those that to leave it as is, the Director Rashawn has presented the last two nights and it's in our package. So that's the numbers I just read out. It's an increase. All those in favor for the increase? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we're good. And the protective service position was a comment and the funding is in the budget. So those were the only 4 that I had written down.
I have one more to add.
You have one more to
I
add.
have one more to add. We had presented a couple items that we could defer or delay or reduce as part of the debt servicing. At the previous meeting, no direction was given. For example, one of those would be the Cunnable Creek project. We have 2.5 million in there for design. However, we could again design it in phases and reduce that number. So again, I can review that with council if they wish to look at those specific adjustments to the debt servicing. Otherwise, they're in there as what they were originally presented based on what we discussed on the 14th.
Yeah, it's been a while ago. So Counselor John Smith.
Thank you, Chair. So if we design it in phases, would that impact the timeliness of when it gets completed?
Director Richard, you want to?
Sure, through you, Chair. So the intention wouldn't be to design it in phases. The reduction from the 2.5 million, the 2.5 million again was a very high level estimate based on designing the whole proposal based on the study. So the reduction is based on just timing. We haven't get the final report. The reduction is, we may have to look at some more preliminary studies on easements, land purchases. So it just allows us to move the project forward, but not design the whole thing. This scope, just preparing the scope on this design is probably going to take some consulting resources. It's going to be a huge scope to get the full design of a solution, detailed design presented. So it just allows us to move the project forward. Given that the time of year we're in for budget approval, we're not going to have a full design done in this fiscal year. So that's reality.
Good. Thank you.
Anything on that? Any direction for Director Richard? Rashawn, sorry.
No, that's
Getting
okay.
late already.
No, that's okay. Yeah, so that would be the biggest one. And of course, that one has the greatest impact on our capital budget as well. So it would reduce our capital budget and we would then work with Director Richard to see what the impact is. It wouldn't change the overall 5-year number, but it would change what is in the current year. So that was one item. And there was a few others, and I'm recalling just off the top of my head, one of those was the dedicated generators for the sewer utility, lift stations. Going back here, and then there was the Tregothic Creek stormwater system upgrade to reduce year one. So that was another thing that we was put forward.
Did
That
we
we didn't-
not give direction on those ones?
Not. If you did, then my apologies. We had a lot of direction, and I might have missed this one if we gave direction on these. So if council could clarify their direction so I didn't miss them.
Sure, we gave direction on these. But just sort of like to find I've been taking notes. I'm sure others have too. Stand by, yeah. Those were done the evening we did the upgrades to the engine, to like the 12 compartments for transport, the jaws of life, the replace of engine 4, the hose tower roof, the civic center floor, the dump tank, the epoxy coat for apparatus floor. We did the lift station, the Windsor Road renewal project, the Bazant to King. That was the night we did the outside operation facility. I had them all highlighted that we did those.
Okay, so we may need to confirm because
Okay.
once we got to the outside facility, we had a conversation about that one for a little bit.
Yeah.
And some of them may not have gotten hit in my notes. So I'll
Oh.
just confirm with you to make sure that those adjustments are made and that council's a direction. Because I do have that, the total adjustment for those would be about 152 would be the adjustment. So I have that written down, but I don't have, my apologies, written down that was direction given.
Yeah, I think it was. Do you have notes on that, CAO? Perfect. I just have it in my highlight and that number adds up to the number I have here, so.
That's perfect. So I had it in my notes to follow up on as part of
Is
the
council
discussion.
good with that, or do you just want to quickly go over that when she comes back, or do you want to do it now so you can get the numbers? Is council good that are you all comfortable that we've done it and the numbers that CAO has, we're good with?
Okay.
You're all good? I'm seeing shakes of head. You're good? Okay.
So you'll see that in the adjustments to capital too, because those weren't
Okay.
presented in the adjustments to capital either.
Anything else? Was that all you had, Director Rashawn?
Yeah.
Okay.
Follow up on.
So Counselor Ivy.
Yeah, the only thing that I'll say just, and again, because these meetings go on and I don't recall the discussion about Cannibal Creek on that one, but you folks may recall better than I just don't recall it. We have it tagged as being reduced. Is that correct?
I have to reduce Cannibal Creek to $200,000. It gives you the ability to do some study work, I understood.
250 is in my notes. Yeah.
The overall debt servicing reduction for the items discussed was $152,603.
Yep. And the Tregothic Creek was reduced to 600. And then to carry the rest over into the next year. So that would take it from 1.2 down to 600. And then the delay of the case backhoe and the sidewalk machine.
Yeah.
So I had all of those highlighted as follow-up items.
Right. I'll just say that, and I should have spoken the other night to this. I may have been in I don't know. That with the delay that's already occurred with Cannibal Creek to the point that we're at now, that we would be partitioning that down even further, to me is a concern. I appreciate the combined impact of those capital items as it relates to what would be experienced by way of debt, but that's a long-term project. It goes out quite a ways. I'm concerned about that. I'm concerned about what that does. And this comment may be late relative to that item that we dealt with, I guess, on the 12th. But that's significant. Of course, all of it is that we have here, but
Okay, counselors, so we're gonna give, if there's no more discussion or no more questions, I'm looking around, seeing no lights. We will break for an hour. So it's 20 to 8. We will come back at 20 to 9 and see where we're at, and hopefully we'll be able to make the motions and the resolutions for council's discussion. Counselor John Smith.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I was looking for the numbers, but I couldn't find them, but Cunnable Creek was reduced to 250,000. Can you tell me what it was reduced from?
2.5 million.
Down to 250,000? Okay.
Good. Are we all good before we break? Okay. We are going to adjourn for recess till 20 to 9. So folks will be back in an hour.